And we live.
Yo, what's
We
up?
live, baby. What's good? What's good? What's good? PYT, a penny for your thoughts. Episode 6. I'm here with my man Blak 7uerilla, aka Paul Cameron. You know what I'm saying? My OG,
My man.
my mentor. You know what I'm saying? Like a big brother, like a father figure to me. Many years coming. Turn it down a little bit. But,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, it's been a long time coming. I asked him what song he wanted to put on. He wanted to put on this song from the movie The Mac. You know what I'm saying? Tell me a little bit about the song, actually.
Brother gonna work it out. That talks about how, as black men, how we always there to look out for each other, and and we want to be treated a certain way. Like at one part it says, don't give me a peace sign if you don't mean it. Don't throw me a black power sign if you don't mean it. I don't joke about blackness. I let other people joke about blackness. I leave that to comedians.
Okay.
But I'm very serious about blackness.
All right. So, Mr. Paul, can you tell us? All right, I'm gonna call him Black. All right, so Black, can you get into what is it that you do? What do you do for a living?
Uh, I'm an educator. I work at Prevention Focus, and I go to a couple schools during the year. We do life skills lessons. We talk about drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. Might talk about gambling, and if I'm lucky, I get to make sure I do it from a black perspective. So when I'm talking about things, I usually use it from black perspective, even though all the curriculum is written, from a European perspective.
Yeah, they teach us. Cause I was actually having a conversation recently with somebody, and they were against the critical race theory in schools. And my thing is this: I have some things about it that I'm annoyed with because I do believe that like some of it does push the black trauma card, the victim mentality card. But I do think racism should be taught, and it should be redone how we teach it in schools. Like they do need a whole new like rehauling of that system and how they teach it, how they educate it. I don't know if critical race theory is the answer, but I do think that what they teach us now is white history, and that's
Yeah.
obviously biased. Is obviously not all the way true, and so that system needs to be rehauled. And because I'm like, they were like, well, they need to teach the truth. And I'm like, yeah, I don't agree with everything that's being taught. I don't know if it's true, but they definitely wasn't teaching the truth before.
Right, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
What we get is mythos that white men are wonderful, are great. They've done everything, and everyone's supposed to follow after them.
Right.
That's supposed to be our idols, the people that we worship. And when you look at the history, if we look at the history of the world, you can see that wherever Europeans have gone, death and destruction has followed heavily. And when you look at how we are here, black people here on this continent, like my family was brought here. I know for a fact. I'm a descendant of enslaved Africans. I know that. So they were brought here. There's no immigration story. They come on the boat, and they look up, and they were, in Manhattan, and say, "Oh, look!" And Statue of Liberty was none of that story for us. Brought here in shackles, working another person's land,
For no pay.
for no pay, raped, and the whole rest. So the trauma behind that for black people, we have 400 years of trauma, and I know that I'm interested to find out what exactly are you talking about. There's the trauma that doesn't need to be talked about, because I think there's trauma when we look at the Holocaust, and one of the things that the Jews have always said, they will never let you forget. But when it comes to us, we are oftentimes ashamed of what's happened, that we don't want to talk about the enslavement, especially what it's done to us, because a lot of the attitudes, a lot of our behaviors come from a lot of that enslavement. I mean, why do you think people have whoopings? That's whippings. And what is it used for? Is it used to straighten you out? Is it used to break you down? And so we have to look at where we get a lot of things from and why we do it. And if it's, and I know it's gonna be painful for white people to have to admit. I'm not saying like, I'm talking about, the history of white people is gonna rock them to their core, because now they're going to think about, oh, I didn't go out there and get this land. No, you killed people. You took other people's land and then claimed it as your own, only because they didn't have the firepower.
It was their manifest destiny.
Oh yeah, the manifest. Yes, yeah.
From sea to shining
sea. Oh yeah, I know. See, whatever they do, it's always they got some. They got some type of holy call to everything, but it's not true.
It's entitlement. That's what it is.
Oh, always entitled. But the funny thing now today, I see some of us, since we're Americans, we have an entitled attitude. I see a lot of young black folks doing stuff that, so I'm older. I'm going, oh, you really think you could do that, huh? Oh, you think you have a right just to walk and talk?
So I was going to say this later for the conversation, but let's get into it now. It's one of the hot button subjects, especially of today. I forgot of the girl's name, but the girl, she was an Olympic runner, 100-meter race. Have you seen what happened? I think her name is Shakara Richardson.
No, what happened? Sorry. Oh, it's the one that
she was very fast. No, not the one that boycotted.
Okay.
So it's one that boycotted the flag. That's something separate.
All right.
I don't know the full details of that. But this girl, she just won the 100-meter race to qualify for the Olympics. And they were saying she might be the fastest woman in the world right now.
All right.
21 years old. She just found out her mother passed. And so the Olympics do regular scheduled drug testing.
Yeah.
It's random. And they drug tested her. And now she can't go to the Olympics because they found marijuana in her system. But they thought the whole point of drug testing with the Olympics to make sure there was no performance enhancement.
Right.
If anything, weed would slow you down.
The
fact that she was smoking weed, but they was smoking all them girls too on the track is kind of crazy. That now y'all trying to keep her out. But my thing is this. My thing is, you sign up for the Olympics. It's their competition.
Mm-hmm.
You subscribe to their rules.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't feel as entitled to say, although I'm signing up for your competition, we're going to play by my rules, and I'm going to smoke weed. Y'all going to let me run regardless. If that's state rules, even though weed is legal in a lot of states and there's a lot of BS around the weed issue, we're going to get into that later too, with how, so many black men got locked up for it, but now it's becoming a lucrative business for many legally. But the thing is the rules of the Olympics, it's their thing, and you want to be in their thing, you have to play by their rules. So I thought it was a bit entitled because the first thing that she posted after it was found out and was reported by everywhere was she said, "I'm human. What do y'all want from me? I made mistakes. I'm human." And I'm like, yeah, she's a bit entitled. But that's my thoughts. But what do you think?
Well, I agree that you're an athlete, you're an entertainer. And so if you sign up for something, you are subject to their rules and their regulations. And if you're not slick enough to get around it, you might get caught. It's funny that it's marijuana. Like you said, marijuana is not an enhancer. Not at all. If anything, it should have made her run kind of crappy. Right. Now, we don't know if she had smoked weed 25 days ago. Right. And that's why they found it. But still in all, it's one of those calls that they supposedly want athletes who are going to be pure. It's a political thing.
I'm sorry, I want to look up her name because I want to say it properly.
Honestly, I think black athletes, brown athletes, Native athletes at this point should not play any sport. Shut this mother down.
I'm so glad you said that. So her name is Shakari Richardson. But this is what I was talking about on my Facebook today. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
So I just made a post about this. I said, and I want to quote it directly. So I said that we pretty much should stop trying to get into the Olympics, stop trying to get into the NBA, and start our own thing. It's this validation that we're searching for. So I said, instead of complaining about not being allowed in their competition, why don't we start our own sports leagues? We have some of the best athletes in the world, but have this childlike desire to be affirmed and verified by the Olympics or the owners of sports teams in the various professional leagues that don't even look like us. Right. I don't think the Negro leagues that we used to have were completely a bad thing. And I say that because they were black owned, black operated. And this is the thing. So people think it's so outlandish for me to say something like that. Some people responded was like, well, how are we going to start our own league, this, that, and the third? The thing is, if everybody thought like that, we wouldn't have the NBA. We wouldn't have the NFL because somebody had to have that original idea back in the 1915 or 1920s whenever they started NFL. Here's the history on that. If you know the history of the NFL, there was a group of people. I don't know the entire story, but I do know this. The owners of the original NFL franchises, it was only 8 franchises, a league of only 8 teams. Each of these owners only had to put down $100 to start the teams. Right. So that means like the couple teams that was in it was Rams, Bears, a few other Packers. So these few teams, it was one team called the Akron Professionals I actually just seen, and I'm not sure who they developed into. They're a different team now, obviously in the NFL. But these owners started these franchises that are now worth billions of dollars today. They started them with $100. So literally having an idea, pursuing it, having a dream and a vision, and materializing it and putting the work in can be worth that. That's why you must invest in yourself. That's why with me, I'm not trying to say like this is something huge. This is something, it's going to be huge one day. That's my dream and aspiration for it. But even my vision of this podcast, A Penny for Your Thoughts, like I wanted to do this. I had a dream and a vision. And now it's actually in front of your eyes right now if you're watching this. So, I say that to say this. If you have anything in your mind, any idea, go for it. Don't be afraid. And it's not even just race, but race is a component, especially for us. Like, we got so many incredible black athletes that feel like they have to get on one of these teams. Like, it's like a lottery ticket. It's like winning a lottery. You have 300 spots. There's 300 picks in the draft for the NFL. You have 2 rounds in the NBA. So, you only have 60 spots to get on a team in the NBA every year. You know what I'm saying? You got the Olympics. And so we try and hire and try to climb over each other with this crabs in the barrel syndrome just to get affirmed by these white folks when we could start our own teams. Same thing with and it's across all entertainment. It's across our culture. But you got it with the Grammys. You got it with Oscars So White. We cry and complain for not getting acknowledged when we can acknowledge ourselves, and we know that we don't. We know we run the cool. We run the culture. Everybody looks at us for what's driving this engine that we're all watching and looking at and partaking in, which is American culture. Like, we run this. So what I'm saying is FUBU, for us, by us. Let's start our own stuff. Start our own musical awards. We don't need to go to the Grammys. We don't need to cry about the Grammys. Start our own movie awards, our own Academy Awards. We don't need to cry about the Oscars. Start our own NFL. Start our own Negro leagues. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying can't nobody be excluded, but it's gonna be our thing. Like, we need to own our own. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense that over 80% of the athletes in the NFL are black, but then there's no black owners. That don't make sense. Like, I'm just being real. And this is something I didn't understand growing up, and my parents would try to explain it to me, and I'm like, well, why do we get rid of the Negro leagues? It can't be explained because it don't make sense. But I'm sorry, I digress.
Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for my show. Riddell Singletary, thank you, Penny, for your thoughts. I'm going to sign off now. I guess I got nothing to say. Well, no. I think you said a lot. And I agree with a lot because at one point, I taught at the first African-centered school in Buffalo, New York, now Valley Shule. And, we tried to, make it. This is before any other, talk about any black school. I know some people might say another school was first, but it's a lie. I say that right now. And it was important for us to be able to educate young black children in a way that wasn't so European, honestly. So it can be done, but the thing that happens that normally we don't have the financial backing, and we don't have enough people in places of power that can really help us with a lot of that financial backing. So I would love to see more shoelace. That was the word. That's the key Swahili word for school. Shoelace. I would love to see that. I think my brother up there at Atlantis, the Atlantis schools up in Niagara Falls. My man's doing this thing. Nation of Gods of Earth, peace. So they have it right. I mean, we can have schools to educate our youth that would compete with any other school. The thing about history, it always depends on who's telling the story.
Exactly.
And so
Story.
it's his story. It's the one who's telling it.
Exactly.
And so for us to now take control of the narrative and tell our story, it's going to be from our perspective. So it's going to be different from everything else that you've been reading. Because in order for there to be a truth, there has to be sides to it. Very seldom do you get one person to tell you the complete truth of any story. There's always going to be different sides of it, especially if you have sides of it. You usually find somewhere in the middle. And critical race theory brings to forefront all the things that have been left out of the stories we've been hearing. So I would actually like to know what you think about, you're talking about the trauma thing and how you have a problem with that. Because we were about to say that, and then we got sidetracked into black athletes because
we got more to talk about.
We're gonna talk
about the NCAA next.
Okay.
I'll tell you about critical race theory. So here's the thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know it fully, but I have done some research on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know part of it stems from the 1619 Project, which I am a big fan of.
Oh, that was
I know
great.
Donald Trump hated the 1619 Project.
He would.
A lot of people, you turn on Fox News. I don't watch Fox News by choice. I go to the gym and they have CNN, Fox News, ESPN playing 24/7 if I'm at the gym. And so all I see on there all the time is teachers are fighting against them, trying to force critical race theory. The New York Times 1619 Project was full of lies and this, that, and the third. And it's hilarious to me how all these white people are mad at their own history and how they treated us. That is funny to me. But here's the thing. This is the problem I have with somewhat liberal people and how they treat black folks and how they try to quote-unquote help us. First of all, I want you, if you're watching this, take some time and Google Malcolm X thoughts on liberals and white liberals. But I'll say this. One perfect example of white liberals, if you ever seen the show Everybody Hates Chris, look at his teacher. This is the way that white liberals treat black folks. So if you watch the show Everybody Hates Chris, he had this white teacher that was a liberal, and she thought she was helping. She was like, "Oh, Chris, I'm going to give you an extension on your homework because I know it's rough taking care of your family when your dad is not around." And Chris is like, this is Chris Rock, by the way. He's like, "What are you talking about? My dad is there for my family." And she just like coddles him and stuff and looks down on him. It's like, "Oh, you're such a victim. Let me be there for you. I know your mom is strung out on crack. My mom doesn't do drugs. What are you talking?" That's the way white liberals look at us. Like they look at us like a victim, like we're a charity case. And that's the problem I have with some of the things in critical race theory that I have seen. I have seen a lot of good knowledge being spread, but I also seen it looking at like black people are like these lost children that need to be taken care of, like a lost puppy. And I don't like that. Like, no, we are warriors. We are very resilient. We made it through all of that. We made it through over 250 years of slavery and then Jim Crow. And then now things with whether it's police brutality or just the microaggressions that we don't even talk about, but that's killing us off, and the obesity, all these things going against us. We make it through all of this. We overcome all that. We are overcomers. You know what I'm saying? And we are not charity cases. We are not people you need to feel bad for. It's just respect us. That's ultimately what we're asking for is respect us. You know what I'm saying? But I tell you this, if you don't respect me, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Because also what I don't like is that they have us feeling like one of the greatest things we did was to get white people to like us. So like our great stories are like Jackie Robinson and Barack Obama, and it's a lot of this was the first black person to be able to do this for white people. You know what I'm saying? And it's like while these are great stories that we can learn something from, those aren't the only thing we're capable of doing is making white people finally accept us. No, we were dope before that. We'll always be dope. Like we are great, but that's my thoughts on critical race theory and my problems with some of the liberal like we feel so sorry for you that we'll give you a chance.
Okay, well, first off, I don't think any black person's asking for charity or a handout. That's something that's been established by white folks to make us feel to make us feel bad for things that's been done. Do we deserve certain things? I feel we do, because white people have gotten things for years. A lot of white families wouldn't have money if they didn't take from getting all the money, and my family was working for you. And so now there comes a time where, hey, in order for there to be true equity, because we're all in this together, there is like some type of payback. I think we're one of the only groups, I'm going to say, that oftentimes feel as though anytime someone gives us something, even if it's due, there's something bad behind it. Like, they think I'm a sucker. I can't get my own. No, we can do it, right. But we are owed several things.
Yeah, no,
we are owed it, and we have to stop. We can't be ashamed of every damn thing that's happened because we were never in power. And yes, there are a lot of stories I like to tell. For years, I used to get mad at Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I couldn't stand to hear his story because I always felt as though it was a tool, and it was a tool white people use. Oh, see, look what this good Negro did.
Right.
See, he took all this pain, and he didn't act up like that uppity Negro Malcolm X. Right. I loved Malcolm X because I was like, yes, I want to slap a cracker.
Yeah, that's what I
see, and like, that's how I felt.
Not that I want to slap anybody, but it's like standing on your own 2 feet.
Well, no, hold on. I want to slap somebody because that's how I felt. But this reminds me of when I was at City Honors, and in my junior year, I forgot the teacher's name, and it's the beginning of the year, and she's talking about, okay, we have American history. My hand shot up. I said, so you said it's American history, or is this white history? And she looked at me like, why did I say that? I said, because all we talk about are what white people did. Like, you've done everything. And then, other thing you're going to say, you're going to mention, black people were slaves, but you don't mention all the other things that we've done. All the things we've created. If it's not for black folks, people are not sitting at tables. People are
not flushing toilets.
They ain't flushing toilets. You ain't talking about lights. You ain't having sound. Yo.
Like eating peanut butter, my favorite pastime.
Yeah, I used to hate that. That's one thing I would think about every time February came up. Here we go, peanut butter time. But he did more than peanut butter. No, he did. But we remember it. That's the only thing we really remember for him. Mm-hmm. So I think this whole critical race theory, it is good, and but it's going to work. The people it hurts is going to be, white historians who have been putting up this myth of their greatness and their superiority. It's going to crush all that because they're going to have to then deal with the history of Africans being brought here, black people doing things. You're going to have to deal with Mexicans, because California was pretty much a Mexican area. You're going to have to deal with things with Texas. So you're going to have to, and then we talk about Native people. Man, I'm waiting for the day when my Native brothers and sisters demand to take over Grand Island. I'm joining them. I'm like, hell yeah, get your island back.
I tell you what, the type of white folks that's out there though, they're gonna be strapped. So
well,
I'm not saying be scared. I'm just like
but
because that's the thing. Like, there's a difference between you got your people that live in Buffalo that might be like, get off my lawn. Like, what are you doing in North Buffalo? But that's different from the people on Grand Island.
Right, but don't get me wrong. There's white people that understand the atrocities that have happened. No, there are some that are going to be allies, and they're going to get down. Yeah. This is not just, it's not just the people of color taking on all white people. Right. No, there's white people out there who are thinking, that was some bull. I'm going to rock with you. One of my best friends, Rick Kowalski. I remember one time he said if there's a war going on, between black and white, he said, would you? He asked me, I think, would I shoot him or something? And I looked at it and I said, well, you're my man. Yeah, I was a kid, and I was like, if you're trying to hurt my people, oh, I'm gonna bust a cap in your ass. And he was like, well, he wasn't worried about that. He said, nah, because I'm with you. He said, I'm shooting all these white folks that are racist. And he lived in a family that was pretty racist. Yeah, I mean, I dealt with a lot of their racism. And, I grew up around racism. So when he said that to me, I was like, yo, that's my man. So, I don't have a thing about, I don't hate all white people. Right. In fact, I think when black people, when we talk about ourselves, it's about us. It ain't about white people. I'm not concerned with what white folks are doing. I mean, do you, just as long as you don't infringe on me.
Right. Some people think being pro-black is automatically anti-white, and that's not the case.
Yeah, but that's how the racists have set that narrative up. Because that's how they are. Like the Ku Klux Klan is about hating everyone that is non-white. Right. Black Power was not about being against, those who are not black. It was an inclusive thing. We allow folks to come in because we want you to be a part of a movement that everyone survives. So, that's the difference. I mean, I love Malcolm X, and I love Nat Turner, and Nat Turner got me in trouble in a class in City Honors.
Tell us about that.
Oh God, here we go, freshman year. Oh wow, okay. So freshman year, I think teacher's Mr. Grandis. For some reason, I remember his face, so I remember he was mad, and so. They were talking about, I think it was Black History Month. Here we go, Martin Luther King. Oh, what a wonderful man. Yo, yeah, here we come. I said, I'm sick of this. Like, what you? I said, no. I said, why don't we learn about Huey P. Newton and Nat Turner and Malcolm X? And he said, why would we want to learn about them? He said, they haven't done anything. Oh, no, they're not important. Something like that, to that extent. And I said, very dismissive. Oh, yeah. So I looked at him, and I said, really? He goes, yeah. He said, what did Nat Turner do? And I said, I like Nat Turner. He was cutting the heads off of white slave owners. That's what we should learn about. Or I said I think cutting off the heads of white folks. and his face turned red. And he looked at me. He did say, "Get out of my class."
I just knew it.
And
I know his type.
And and the funny thing is, I was a teacher's kid.
Right.
So like the teachers knew my parents, right. And I was kind of rebellious about things, but black things definitely. And so I said, "Yo, fuck this class," and I walked out. And that's the first time I ever was that disrespectful to a teacher and to the education system, because I was like, F y'all, I'm done. And it was my freshman year of city honors. I'd already been there for 2 years, and the patterns I'd seen them already.
And I was about Huckleberry Finn.
Oh, Huckleberry Finn, that's my junior year, I believe. So we had I was maybe sophomore year, I don't know, one of those years. We had a teacher. She was subbing. It was in English, and she decided we should read Huckleberry Finn, because that was the big classic. You need to read this because Mark Twain, blase, blah blah blah. And they had Nigga Jim in it, and I remember people say Nigga Jim, and read aloud in class, and I look around the room and I see people smirking, and it bothered me. Because I see, white kids read Nigga Jim. I'm like, nigga? No, I wasn't feeling that. Right. So I asked the teacher, I said, why are we reading this? I said, I don't find this entertaining. I don't find it to be all that great writing. And she told me that, this was, and that there were no great black writers at all that was worth reading. So, wow. So now
people immediately rush to my mind like Links and Hughes, but my thing is, why do I have to defend that to the likes of you? Like, I don't even got to name nobody.
You're an English teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe English was still her thing, even though she was a sub. So I was pissed. And I was like, F this. I think I went home and told my parents. And my mother's always been a really strong supporter of, if you're going to stand up for something, go ahead and do it. And so I stopped reading the book in class. Like, I just stopped. And I told her, and I was trying to get the black students, yo, we need to boycott this. And eventually, we boycotted it. It became a big issue, and the newspapers and a couple of TV stations heard about what was happening. And so the Board of Education took that book off the reading list. It was banned up until when was OJ free? Okay, I'll say. No, I take that back. Maybe about until 2000, it was off the reading list. Like, it wasn't mandatory. Wow. So, yeah, that's just a little brief history. That happened at City Honors, and at that time, that was back in like either 82 or 83. So, and City Honors has always been a political school, and that's one thing that I think like you guys didn't realize, never realized how much power you really have. Because one thing they don't want anyone outside of the school to hear what your problems are. So if you have some issues and you start petitioning things, you started having sit-ins and all the rest of that. And that's what we did at City Eyes early on. We got there, we got into that, what are that schools called? From 80, so I was there from 80 to 84. That was the high school era. From 78 to 80, we were at school 17. So then we went to Fosdick Maston in 80. And I'm going to tell you, we had so many sit-ins, but they were like for some of this dumb, white entitled shit. It was. It's like, you wouldn't let me play Treasure Hunt on the computers, third period. So we're going to boycott.
You couldn't play Dungeons and Dragons.
No, but you know what they would do? Yo, man, they be like, they got to remember the school was small at this time. So if you got 400 kids not to go to class, that meant you had like most.
Yeah, that shake things up.
Yeah, and so then you would have teachers having to deal with that every time they turn around. There was always some wild complaint, and that was Bobby Revere, and his father was head of the school board at the time. And Bobby Revere, if he had an issue, he always did something, and that was one thing I used to like about him, because whatever how dumb it was, and people would organize it and do it. And at the time, we had Mr. Anelli was the principal, and he was the right man for the job because he actually had empathy and compassion for students.
Now I remember we met him because he used to come and tell us a story about the fire, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know if he did, but I mean, yeah. But Mr. Nelly was a wonderful guy. He passed away. He was a wonderful man, and I think was it last year or earlier this year. So he was a. I really liked Mr. Nelly, and I mean I liked, and it's funny. And I was in the office a lot. Yeah, I became friends with Mr. Nelly and I forgot his right hand man's name. But the assistant principal, he was the tough guy. But no, I became good pals with them, and they knew I wasn't a bad kid. I just didn't like things. I wouldn't do it,
Right.
and I don't think a lot of times they knew that I looked at the school as, I wasn't impressed with the academics. Like I'm not gonna go out of my way to make you think I'm smart.
Right. That's the point I'm making.
I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
Listen, I know I got brains, and I know you trying to do some other stuff here.
Right.
And
they're trying to get their numbers.
Right, and it's always about numbers.
Yeah.
And that's how it was when I was there as a kid. And so when I had the opportunity to come back there and teach, it was always important for me to let senior students know that you are not supposed to be like the rest of these high schools. You're not supposed to be, your thinking should not be like Hutch Tech kids. And that's not a knock on Hutch Tech, because Hutch Tech is a good school. There's a lot of good schools in Buffalo. But we were set up to actually be the real shakers. We're not supposed to be part of the wheel per se, but we're supposed to put new spokes on it and make it move differently. And what I see now is that, they're just setting kids up to be a part of the machine. And to me, that's not it. I don't know how we got on that subject. I think I lived down.
What I wanted to do is actually bring it back around, because I'm like, we got right into the like nitty gritty stuff, but we didn't get to talk about like our background and our affiliation with City Honor. So it actually came full circle perfectly. I want y'all to know, as a disclaimer, like I keep looking at my phone. It's not because I'm like on social media or nothing. It's my docket, so it's my questions and stuff. So I'm crossing things off and stuff and adding things in. Anyways, so how we met was actually. He was my teacher coming up at City Honors in the health class. He was he would come in do seminars. He was your prevention specialist.
Yeah.
So one of the things that actually stuck out to me that I always remember was he did one right after. This was in 2009. This was right after Chris Brown and Rihanna had the altercation where he beat her down pretty bad. But he did a class on that and gave us a big like life lesson on that and what we could take from it. And it's like, like obviously don't put your hands on women, but even more so than that, about the celebrity culture and how we put so much into people, but people are still human. But at the same time, like sometimes people really aren't crap. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot of lessons from that day. But but that always stuck out to me, how he was dope enough and cool enough and in touch enough to like talk to us about something that relevant. Whereas, it wasn't just we're going to school and we're going to learn health today, guys. And it's like, no, this is something that had affected all of us, because we all were fans of both Chris Brown and Rihanna. We all seen this happen. It's like, wait, like, how do we move forward and stuff in it? It's like, no, let's take a minute to reflect on this. Let's take a whole class to actually discuss this and how does this make us feel. I always thought that was real dope. And then moving on from there, I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to the questions. But moving on from there, he's seen that I was dibbling and dabbling in music myself. And once I hit high school and I was recording and doing a couple of shows, he put me on to some of the people that he worked with in music, and he wanted to manage me and stuff. So he became my manager. You know what I'm saying? And like, we've been trying to figure this music thing out for years and stuff, but still at this point, he's still my manager. He held me down to this day, and he taught me a lot of lessons. Like, this is my OG. This is my mentor. He taught me a lot of life lessons, and I'm grateful to God, honestly, that we crossed paths and that he's in my life. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to give you guys a background of like what role it is that he plays in my life and stuff. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
That was beautifully said. Thank you. I appreciate that. That lesson about Rihanna and Chris Brown, I can vaguely remember some things, but what's always been important doing those lessons is making it something that fits the students. Like, I'll be honest with you, that curriculum, a lot of times we do, that stuff is whack. It is doo. And I have to take it and make it mean something to the kids, to the students. And I've always had this argument, once again, here we go, where I look at material and I'm like, yo, man, what students were y'all using? Oh, you're using some white kids in middle America who are in a room, for days, who are doing this stuff with, and that's why this worked this way. And you're not dealing with some of the kids I deal with. I dealt with not only white children, but black children, brown children.
Those exist?
Yeah. I'm dealing with Native kids. I'm Asian kids. I'm dealing with people whose cultures are different. It's not the same. And oh man, and the good thing about seniority, which is crazy, I can tell you a lot of bad stuff, and a lot of times I'll say these terrible things about city honors, but it's all the bad things that help me do what I do today.
Right.
Because, if I didn't see the mistreatment, if I didn't feel this way if I didn't have teachers claim that I hadn't written papers because they didn't think it's not my work, I'm not capable of doing this type of work. I mean, I had a teacher say I plagiarized a poem. It was too good to be mine. And she knew good and well, Miss Rochford, I will say her name, little tiny, so I'm about to get all in my feelings. But yeah, she claimed I didn't write something, and I'll never forgive or forget what happened. And it was things like that turned me off about the school. But I was an angry brother, and instead of me going to an adult and getting support all the time, I lashed out. And the way I lashed out was skipping class, not doing my work. I slid through school. And I mean, I slid. I was doing limbo sliding. That bar was so low, I was under. And I missed out. I missed out on some other things I could have really gotten out of school. Instead of deciding on, you know what, I'm going to learn what they're telling me, and then I'm going to cross-reference that with some things that deal with my people and the history I'm reading over here, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to be in class, and be like, excuse me, what about this?
I had a moment like that with the 13th Amendment, because my teacher said the 13th Amendment freed all slaves. It was Mr. Curry. And he said, yeah, the 13th Amendment, and this is funny because this is before, now everybody knows the 13th Amendment. They know that it has the little clause in it. But back then, he was going through what they call the 3 slave amendments, which is 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Yeah.
And so he was saying the 13th Amendment was the amendment that finally ended slavery once and for all. And I raised my hand and I said, sir, with all due respect, it didn't completely erase slavery. There's a clause in it. He said, no, it ended slavery. And in the whole class, I was the only black kid in that class. It happened to be one of those classes, just junior year. They all started laughing at me, and they were like, dude, let it go. Like, He's a history teacher. Mr. Curry, he had 1 year left before retirement. He always made it known. He's like, I only got one more left with you kids, and then I'm done. He said, I did my 30 years of teaching. I'm ready to retire.
Yeah.
So the thing is he's very experienced. He studies these things every year. He knew the amendments like the back of his hand, or so he thought. And so the thing was this amendment was one special to my heart, and now it's special to a lot of black people because they know the truth behind it is they use the incarceration system in America to still continue slavery legally under the guise of the Constitution. So what it says is, what is it? Involuntary servitude is illegal except
if you're
as used as except for for punishment for a violation of a crime. So pretty much, if you break the law, you then can legally become a slave.
Exactly.
So just look up the 13th Amendment. But my teacher was like, he didn't even want to waste time on me because he's like, I know that it doesn't say that, but he's like, you know what? I'm going to entertain this. So everybody was laughing at me like, Verdell, like, what are you doing? You're trying to tell this teacher that's been teaching this course, U.S. history, for all these years that he's wrong on the Constitution. So he has a copy of the Constitution in his class. It's a copy. It's, took it off of a copy machine or whatever. But he picks it up, starts reading it, and he's reading it aloud. So he's like, see, so slavery is illegal except for use of, and everybody jaw dropped. And I stood up and I was like, see, I told you. It was one of the like most like Philip was like, I knew my stuff, and everybody like they gave me respect that day. And my friends told me, it was like, yo, Verdell, you should have walked out of class at that moment. Like, he couldn't have stopped you from leaving. I should have, but I just sat back down in my chair and I was like, I just felt good. You know what I'm saying?
You should.
It's not every day you get to prove your history teacher that they don't know what they talk about like, because in their minds, they want to think that America is such a great place that it wouldn't have any ulterior motives, such as we gonna make it legal.
Right.
For something like, because that questions somebody's motives. Like, why would they do something like this? So you have people that you enslaved for almost 300 years. You finally setting them free, but you gonna put a clause in it? Like, why would somebody do something like that? America wouldn't do anything like that. Just look at the amendment; it's right there in front of you. Look at the 13th Amendment, people. If you haven't already, if you haven't heard of it, check out the 13th Amendment. It'll put you in. So, yeah. But
that's right. And hey, we should let people know right now. That's why you don't mess with light-skinned brothers, because they will light your ass up. I know you think only dark-skinned brothers gonna do that, but you gotta look out. It's them light-skinned ones. Y'all keep messing with them. All right.
He already got the theory on that because he like Malcolm X was sort of light skinned. You light skinned. The dude in CB4 that was like, I'm black. Like, he light skinned. They got something to prove. That's all.
I'm telling you.
So I would have. Let's take things to something a little more lighthearted.
We're not talking about light skin no more.
Let's go to music.
Okay.
So as far as music, I know you manage musical artists. You have a lot of experience, especially in the Buffalo music scene and stuff. How did you first get into music? Because you also were a rapper yourself.
Oh well, yeah, but yeah, that was I mean, oh my God, yeah, a friend of mine, he got me, and he said, here, I told him I was writing. He did music, and I used to go to the studio, and I did some stuff, and thank God nothing was ever released. So that ends that. But the whole managing thing happened for me was I met LaGuan Rogers at Wegmans, and LaGuan had a CD, Commonwealth, part of this group. And at the time there were 4 of them, and he said, "Man, I want you to listen to this." I really didn't know him, but sometimes you meet people, there's something about them. He said, "You know what?" And at first, I think he was just going to give it to him. He was selling them, but then he was like, if you don't have any money, I'll just give it to you. And I looked at him, and I was thinking, no, you know what, brother, you worked for it. Here, I'm going to give you this money for it, and I'll listen to it. I took it home, I listened to it. It wasn't bad. I liked, at the time, they were all they had this Wu-Tang-esque flow, and I was like, I dig that. And so I went back to LaGuan, And I said, I would like to try to help you guys, do some things. And I said, talk it over with your people and whatever, whatever. So I didn't hear from him for, I think, a little bit. And then I saw him again at Wegmans, and he was like, yo, you still interested? And I was like, yeah. Now, at this point, it was just two of them. It was LaGuan, and it was Carl Stokes Jr., who is now Dr. Carl Stokes Jr. Let me just say that. And we teamed up. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of work, and we were fortunate enough to, do clubs in Buffalo. We worked with Matt McDonald, who had a group called Swagger. It's white dudes, but Matt is a bad guitarist. When it comes to picking up on rhythms, and he knew how to make the joints that we did in the studio. He brought them to life in concert. We had, and I'm gonna say to this day, we had the best live show of hip hop in Buffalo. There was no one touching it because it wasn't just the DJ, and we never rapped over our voices. Everything was live. If we had the song, you just heard the music and they rapped that way. And these dudes worked all the time. I mean, they would practice. We'd go in the studio. We didn't play around in the studio. We would do overnighters. I mean, we'd go in at 8 o'clock and come out at 6. And we were tired, but we had opportunities to hear like 6 songs. And so, I'd go home, go sleep at 6, I'd be back up at 8. Put the music on, oh yeah, that was a good night. And then try to go the rest of the day off the energy. So they got me involved with one of the work. And the other thing was that I wanted to work with black artists because I saw how the industry always treated and cheated them out of things. And I knew that I wanted to do something different. And this is before we talked about mastering. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut in. I like to give this Jermaine gave me. He said, one thing you got to understand about the music industry is that the labels and all these other people that want to eat from the artists, they're like the pimps, and then the artists are the hoes. And that was something he taught me. He taught me this like when we first started kind of like doing business together, and I didn't understand it at first, but at this point I understand it like almost completely. But it is so true. Like, he taught me this when I was like 16 years old about how these people are like vultures and they tell you what you want to hear. They really just want to pimp you out and get as much money as they can out of you. But I'm sorry, that's just a gem to leave with you guys. That's something I always keep in mind. No matter what, even as employees, your boss is the pimp and you are the hoe. They want to get you for when you sell your time as an asset as an employee. They're just trying to get that time out of you. You're just an asset, but you can quickly become a liability and they'll let you go.
Well, no, and that's what I mean, because I remember that time we got into that little argument. He said, "Well, ain't you a pimp? You pimping me?" And I was like, you have a point. And I left it at that because I knew I was going to come back and say, but the difference is, you're right. I'm pimping, but I'm giving you game. Because I don't think I'm going to be there for your entire life or your career. So I have to make sure when I'm not there, you're able to do what you need to do to be successful. I said, because our trip might be really short. It might be that I get you to this point, and then I'd be able to say, you know what? I can't do anymore. If I stick around and make you think I could do more for you, and you don't do anything, that's a disservice. And so I never wanted to be a disservice to the artist. I always wanted to say, hey, let me help you get to this point. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you that. You need to know this information because when you about to make it big, then I might move to another position if you want me around. So, and you have to get someone who's more experienced. And I think that's, you have to be honest with people. And that's what's lacking with a lot of people when they in the music business, especially in entertainment, period.
Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run through a couple of topics a little quicker.
Okay.
Um, these are like some of the hot button topics of the day. So the first thing I want to talk about, similar to what we were talking about earlier with sports, is the NCAA rule change. So now athletes can actually get paid off for their likeness.
About time.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's about time.
Right.
NCAA has the nerve to be mad at students, trying to make a little change. No, signing autographs and whatnot. You talk about a plantation. NCAA. That's a fucking plantation. And they've been using those. You've been using athletes. I'll be nice, athletes, all of them, but specifically black athletes. Number property, and man, good. It's about time.
Let's talk about it. We're gonna delve into it just a little bit. So you got all these athletes that are not able to even receive dinner. Like these kids came from the projects, from broken homes. Some of them came from good homes, but never had money to that extent. And they were the top tier athletes at their high school. They got a scholarship to go to the school. And a lot of people say, a lot of white people I know that talk about it, like, well, they aren't getting compensated. They're getting a full ride. That's a penny and a drop of a bucket compared to what these schools are making off of. You talking about charging people $30, $40, $50 to come see these athletes play, and you're filling up arenas and venues of like thousands of people, and the coach is usually getting paid $10 million a year, $5 million a year. So if the coach could make that much, you can't hide under the guise of this is amateur athleticism. There's nothing amateur about a coach being paid $10 million a year to coach.
But hold up.
The question is, why can't these athletes get a piece of that pie? Go ahead.
And what about the school getting money from all the video games?
Oh man.
So yeah, it's all the same game. America should be fond of its pimping game. America's good at pimping.
And then here's the thing.
That's what we do. We do that well.
American laws themselves, they would shut this down if this was any other corporation doing this, because that's a violation, because it's like it's monopolizing a certain set. So if let's take this out of college athleticism and put this into retail. So if Walmart got together with Kmart, Target, and all the different retail stores and said, all right, so we're going to get together and we're going to pay all our employees $5 an hour, they would get shut down by the government. Like the government would be like, wait, no, that's monopolizing on a certain group of individuals in a certain labor field. So you can't do that. You can't get together as a committee and say we're going to all pay our people the same. So like if they want to leave your job, they want to come to mine, they're not going to get any more pay. You get what I'm saying? But that's what all the colleges got together and did. And they made an excuse for that for all these years. And finally it took the Supreme Court to say, wait a second, this ain't right. Like y'all kind of breaking that same law that all these other businesses that have to uphold. And it's kind of sad that it took this long, because you literally had billions of dollars being interchanged between consumers and schools, and the players seen none of that. And it's sad because, look at Reggie Bush. This man lost his Heisman. His Heisman got vacated. Their records got vacated for all running back records he done broke when he was at USC. His whole legacy got stained. All because he was receiving money from boosters and stuff. Yeah. And that's the thing, is it's always been going on. The boosters, all these rich families that quote unquote fund the teams and stuff, they're giving money to players. That's how you get your favorite player playing for Ohio State or USC or Florida or UNC.
That's
all
right.
These colleges, they're getting paid. It's just under the table. So it's like, if you're gonna vacate Reggie Bush, you got to vacate everybody else, because everybody got a little piece of that pie. But that's another story for another day. But it is long overdue. It's about time. So on to the next subject. What are your thoughts on Bill Cosby getting out of prison?
I think I want some pudding pops. No, let me stop. He got out because they messed up. Do I think he's guilty? Hell yeah.
Right.
Should he be in jail? Prison? Hell yeah. What he did was egregious.
Right.
However, the justice system has all these different rules and whatnot, and when they're applied, and sometimes people mess up, some people get freed. Now, I'm not going to be mad. I'm looking at it from a political view. Okay? It's just like OJ. He got out, yeah, for once. The justice system worked for a black man.
I was just about to bring up OJ.
That, and it worked for him. Because he also had money. Now, if that had been me, my ass would still be in jail.
Right.
Because I ain't got that money to have a lawyer, keep working on it.
Right.
Now I got some of those senior students who are lawyers now. I might need y'all, but but that's the thing. Like, if you don't have those type of lawyers, you don't have the type of paper. You're not gonna get that justice. Justice is a monetary thing.
It really is.
It's not.
They say there's blind justice. The whole idea of justice is like this blind woman holding a balance scale. You can throw that out with the American dream.
That hoe is keistering money. That's why.
Yeah, and on the other hand, she like.
Yeah.
I'd say this. So, for one, everybody got their opinions and what's correct, what's politically incorrect. Some people are mad that some people are cheering that Bill Cosby got out. I'm not gonna lie. My initial reaction was, I was glad that he got out because I knew that they didn't prove that he did anything. In the burden of proof, sadly, it rests on the prosecution. They didn't prove that he did it. They used a former testimony that he gave in a what type of case was it?
That's the one that was thrown out, right? That was the one they couldn't use. A deposition.
Not a criminal trial, but just the opposite of criminal trial.
Civil.
Yeah, it was a civil case. Excuse me. I'm sorry. So they used his testimony from a civil case, and they tried to say that incriminated him. Now, whether it incriminates him or not is kind of up in the air, because he was trying to say that all I said was I took drugs while having sex with people. That doesn't necessarily mean that I drugged them. It just means we were high and having sex, and it was the 70s. It was a crazy time. Right. So some people argue that. Some people say, no, he was admitting to drugging women. This is my take on it. I was never in the bedroom with Bill Cosby while he slept with these women. I wasn't there when they also claimed to have had the trauma that they had. So I can't take away from their trauma. I can't throw this man under jail. I can't crucify him. I can't say he's innocent because I wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to make a stance either way on that. I don't know. I wasn't in the bedroom. And I feel like a lot of us speak to be like, I know that man did it. I don't know. I will say this. It's kind of damning when you got over 60 women saying the same thing. But still, once again, I don't know. But what I can say is the way the American justice system is set up, you have to prove somebody's guilty without reasonable doubt.
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to. They did not do that in this case. And for once in a million years, the black man actually got off because they didn't prove it, when in many other cases, it's so easy to prove that a black person was the perpetrator. And just look at the Central Park 5. Obviously, them 5 black kids raped this woman, but they didn't. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, I'm glad that the precedent is actually followed here, in that the justice system is what it says it's supposed to be, as far as guilt must be proven.
Right.
It wasn't proven, so they got him out of prison. I'm not happy that if this man actually violated these women and drugged their drinks, spiked their drinks, and then, did what he did while they were asleep to them, if he actually did that, then he should not only be taken in jail, he probably should get the needle. You know what I'm saying? But that's just the way our world works. And like you said, money plays a huge part in it, because he kept appealing the case and appealing it and appealing it. If you ain't got money, you can't do that. But the thing is, if you really look up Bill Cosby, his net worth is over $400 million. So, you know what I'm saying? We talking about high levels of power in this. You get what I'm saying? And that also brings into question, if this man is worth all that money, somebody could have been after that money. Somebody could have been trying to get that from him. So we don't know if these women, 60 women, could have testified trying to get to that $400 million pot? Like, we don't know. I don't know, so I'm not going to speak too much on it. I know a lot of things are politically incorrect to say, but I'll say this. I'm glad that in this case in particular, because it never happens, that the justice system upheld its own words and values and rules. If y'all didn't prove him to be guilty, he shouldn't be in prison. I mean, that's just the facts of the matter. We can feel how we want to feel about it. I don't know if it's right or wrong as far as like on a moral scale. I just know that if you gonna say this, you gotta keep that same energy. That's all I'm saying. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you guys understand that.
I hear what you're saying, but I think you cannot dismiss the fact so many women did say something. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, women, just like black folks, have been through a lot. Mm-hmm. And trauma is something that's usually told through the lens scope of some white dude who figured out what trauma is, but really is not going through it. Right. So did Bill do it? I think he did, because it was a well-kept secret. And actually it wasn't even that much of a secret. People who are in the industry had already knew it. Right. Power. Well, he was hanging around Hugh Hefner, a whole bunch of other folks who were doing the same damn thing. Right. It was all power. You know, I get a woman, roofie her. All right, I'm gonna take her. Now, I don't know what that proves. I mean, that to me has always been a sick thing, that you gotta drug someone to take their body. But that's something that's very much rooted in America. Is about people not having dominion over their own bodies, and that's especially for black people. So here we got a brother, a black man, who is doing the very thing that he so hated about enslavement. He wants to have dominion over everyone's body, any woman, black, white, he didn't care. And I think there was probably more white women involved, which could also speak to something else. So, you know, Bill, hey, he did admit to some things. You got caught, bruh. You know, but he got off. I mean, he got out because of something that, in fact, it was a Trump guy that okayed that deal. And so, so notice that, the Trump people were all about getting off celebrities off of certain things. It's just that R. Kelly didn't get Trump enough time, I guess. He guilty too. Yeah. Go ahead.
I will say this: if that man did that sick stuff, and this is where the spiritual component comes in. I'll just say this real quick: God is the ultimate judge, and there is no sin that goes unpaid for. You know what I'm saying? So he will see justice one way or another. People might brush that off and be like, yeah, well, that's your guy. We'll see what happens. But time will tell. Time will tell.
Oh, he's going to get it.
And that's how life works. Some people call it karma. I call it the law of reciprocity. And the Bible explains it like this. You reap what you sow. You know what I'm saying? So even though he might have went to prison for 2 years and came out alive somehow at 84 years old, going into big bad prison, he will reap what he sowed. So if he did do that, life itself will fix that wrong. In my opinion, I believe so.
He went in there being somebody. Mm-hmm. He's gonna come out. Is tarnished. Yeah. People don't look at him the same.
Nah, he used to be American guy.
I mean, people gonna call him a rapist. They're gonna say everything about him. Right. I mean, he's A1 predator. They're gonna call him out. And I don't think.
Same with OJ. Like everybody know he did that to.
Did he?
Nicole?
Did he? Oh. Yeah. No. I mean, let's be real. Football players. Do you know any football players?
Like personally?
Yeah. Like okay. Like how old are they? If you any football player that anyone who's played, let's say college ball, and maybe some pro or semi-pro. at a certain point in their life, if they play long enough, they're gonna have some aches and pains. OJ was a running back. He took a lot of hit on his knees. He had bad knees. The thing, I don't think he necessarily cut those people up because both those people were in great condition. Ron and her. They couldn't get away from OJ with them bad knees. Oh, he was high. Okay. So he's so high that he became a super athlete all over again. He was not the athletic specimen at that point. I don't think.
What about adrenaline?
I don't think it was possible.
I think
you
ever seen
somebody else was there.
Kill her? He kind of explained what happened. Did you see the show with Cuba Gooding Jr.?
I missed it.
People versus Ultra.
I missed it.
No, yeah, you gotta see that. That show shows that like
that he could have done it.
It shows that he did it and he got off because he had a match with. He had Johnny Cochran. He had they called him the Dream Team. He had the Dream Team. Like when you talk about money.
Oh yeah.
He spent some money on that defense team. The Kardashians that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had John Travolta. I forgot who John. It was like some Italian lawyer that was.
Not Lee Bailey, but F. Lee Bailey. Yeah. And he had Johnny Cochran.
They did their thing.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they got him off, but I think he did that. It made me feel bad that like I know if I was alive in that day, I probably would have been cheering the ball with all the rest of the black folks, but. It was one of those things that he did.
Once again, black folks weren't cheering the fact that Nicole was killed.
Right.
No one was cheering that Ron was killed.
Right.
We were looking at justice and laughing at it.
Fresh off
it's
of
off the Rodney King joint.
And that's why he got off. That played a big part of it.
And so
because they was like, we can't have LA rioting again.
Right.
We can't deal with that destruction.
And so
it cost millions of dollars.
So that's why black people say, ha ha ha. Right. You got it. And OJ, OJ is OJ. And that's I'm gonna leave it at that because
I ain't black, I'm
OJ. Exactly.
Okay. Like Jay-Z.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, so we're gonna keep things moving. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually local politics. So we talk about politics a lot, you and me.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about local and national politics. Well, we'll save national politics for another time because it's not as important as it was before. The election already happened. Biden won. You know what I'm saying? Everything is in jubilee, as we all assume. But we'll say that for later. Let's talk about local politics in the 716. So you had as some say, the mayor-elect, India Walton. She won the Democratic primary.
Yeah, good for her.
But now we got, after popular demand, you had a bunch of people shouting and yelling in front of City Hall saying, we want Byron, we want Byron. And it's funny because Byron is a black mayor, but you got a lot of white people cheering for him to stay in. So think about that for a second. But anyways, so you have him. He's going to go on a write-in campaign.
Yeah.
Now, on the outside looking in of the Democratic candidacy, because he didn't even run a campaign. He didn't take Miss India Walton serious.
Yep.
And he refused to debate her, refused to acknowledge her. Now she won the Democratic primary.
And now he wants to
so
debate.
They're going to run against each other in November. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, so Buffalo should have had a black mayor a long time ago. And that was upended because Jimmy Griffin, who was a Democrat at the time, he lost in the primary, and Buffalo is a Democratic place. So in the primary, if you lose, a lot of times you automatically will become the mayor of Buffalo, because there is no Republican running against you. There is no the Republican Party barely exists in Buffalo. So Griffin ran as a Republican though, and that was about color, and he ends up winning. So I remember that, and to see Byron now consider the write-in thing. Yo, brother, if you want the job that badly, Why weren't you out there hustling?
Right.
Um, and he's been the mayor for 16 years. Damn, that's a long time.
My thing is, at this point, your resume will speak for
It
itself.
should speak for itself.
And if you were that great of a mayor after 16 years, why wouldn't people just vote for you
Right.
again?
Because the areas that kind of voted against him, it wasn't really like the black area. It was a lot of places that it was the west side and a lot of North Buffalo. It was a small turnout, but it was really those areas that were kind of like, oh hell no. And Byron did lovely by them. So there's something else that he's not doing, obviously.
He got real smug, very
You
entitled.
know,
And
wait.
it's like the people that he was quote unquote spoiling, like he was doing a lot for them.
Mhm.
Even for them, he was doing the bare minimum. Like he wasn't doing enough. So yeah, I would agree with that. Like it's like he completely turned his back on us. Like we was like the redheaded stepchild, the East Side. We looked the same, if not worse, than when he first got in, and that is intolerable, despicable. There's a lot of words I got to say for how he treated the East Side over the last 16 years, especially considering the fact that he had all these grants from the federal government, including the Buffalo Billions.
Mm.
Now I don't know what happened with that money, but all I know is
Mm.
there's parts of Buffalo that look beautiful, but after 16 years, majority of Buffalo should look immaculate by now with all the money he's been given. And he got state grants, federal grants, all types of money. So it's like, for me, it's like, yeah, no, let somebody else get in there. And even if they crash and burn, it's time for a change. Like, you got to give somebody else a shot.
That's yeah. That's pretty much how I felt about it.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I will say, Sister India. I know you might not watch this, but if you get a chance, you need to explain to people what defund the police means,
No,
or
that's something I was worried about.
stop using defund the police. Tell them we're going to reallocate money. We're going to reform things, because defunding the police for Republicans and anyone else, they think that means you're not going to give the police any money. You're
No,
going to take
yeah,
money
I
away
know
from
she's
them.
a socialist. I know she's an activist. So I know she's gonna shake things up and she's gonna piss some people off.
Right.
And I am interested to see how she's gonna. I know she's gonna reform the Buffalo Police. The Buffalo Police, they had a
They
lot
need
of
to be reformed.
controversy, and they like, and even in the last like few years, especially last year with the whole after George Floyd, you had all the protests,
Right.
and then Buffalo Police made the national news like multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Once they actually knocked out a white man and bust his head wide open. That was crazy.
Hey, that was viral.
Yeah.
And that was national.
Yeah.
Everyone saw that.
Not everybody saw that. And
So,
they just kept going on about their business. But it's I already know she's gonna have some reforms for the Buffalo Police. And we'll see what happens. But I'm interested to see. But I hope, I'm pretty sure he's gonna probably be a part of office, but we'll see. You know, it's not confirmed yet. But yeah, so time will tell. We'll revisit this when that time comes. And that's all for that. Last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll
wrap it
get
up.
the plugs and the recap.
Okay.
Last thing I want to talk about is stocks. So, do you have any stocks that you really pay attention to? I know we've been talking about the stock game recently.
No, I mean not really. I've been, I listen to what you're talking about. And I look at it, and I am a gambling specialist. So stocks is really gambling.
Okay.
But so I haven't put anything into. One thing that I've always wanted to do though is put money in the weed game. I know that's big. It's going to get bigger because things are getting shittier in the United States, and people are going to have to get high just to get by. And I mean, I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but that's
Shots to Shikara.
but that's that's what's up.
Right.
And there are a lot of things that can be done with cannabis in general. And I hope that with the legalization of marijuana, it then opens it up to everything else in terms of cannabis sativa. What else can we do with it? And there is more. So stocks, I don't have anything at this present time. I mean, I got stuff through my job, and back in the usually through my jobs, I've always had stocks, and sometimes I play like middle of the road where they could, you know, play with my money more. But the older you get, usually you get down lower because you have to be worried about saving it for the future. But yeah, stocks are important, and right now it's a beautiful industry. If you know what to do with it,
Yeah.
you could make a penny.
No, there's people making